Hi everyone, I hope you're all well and staying safe. This feels very strange to be doing a demonstration for you from my kitchen at home, but obviously this was the safest way we could complete the final lesson of our course. I think doing it this way will at least give you a little bit of the same experience that we do in class, so you'll be able to see everything that I do and how it comes out, and then you can bake the cake yourself at home, and then if you've got any questions or if something doesn't go right, then you can always just drop me an email and I'll try and get back to you. Maybe if you share some of your pictures or videos of you making the cake, that would be fantastic, and we can have a look and see how you did with it. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to grease your tin. So I've got like a rectangle tin here. You could use a round one if you wanted to, if that's all you've got at home, but just make sure that it doesn't have a loose bottom, because the syrup that we're going to put in at the bottom, it could leak through the bottom, so make sure that it doesn't have a loose bottom. And the first thing is going to be to grease it. Now I am using stork. I know on your recipe it does say butter, but I'm just using stork because I wanted to use it up. I had some left over. And I think we've discussed this before, like using butter compared to stork or baking spreads, and the main thing I think is flavour. So butter gives a better flavour. You don't have any like preservatives in there or any other added palm oil or anything like that. So that's why I prefer using butter, but you're welcome to replace it with stork or something like that. So I'm just going to grease around the tin, piece of kitchen towel. And then you just need to put in your golden syrup. And that just needs to be popped in the oven for maybe like 1 or 2 minutes, just so that it melts a little bit and you can spread it around the tin more easily. So I'm just going to do that. I'll just put a timer on so I don't forget. So what I've done is I've weighed out all my ingredients ready. So I've got my butter in here, or my stork, because I'm using, but this would be your butter. And then I'm going to put in my caster sugar. And then I'm just going to use my wooden spoon to start mixing it together. So we're using the creaming method today. So make sure if you are using butter that it's soft and you've taken it out of the fridge perhaps the night before, because otherwise it's going to be a lot harder to mix together, as you may know. So I'm just mixing it until it's come together, so both the ingredients are combined. And then I'll just check on my syrup. That's fine. So that was just about 1.5 minutes. And you just want to tilt the tray so that your syrup is fairly evenly distributed through the tin. And then you need to layer, obviously don't touch it because it's going to be hot, layer your fruit on. So obviously I'm doing the classic pineapple upside down cake, but whatever fruit you had here, you would obviously prepare it first, make sure it's all cut up and ready, and then you layer it on top of your syrup. So I've got, I think, 6 pineapple rings from a can, and that was about 200 grams. And I've just slightly dabbed them before with a piece of kitchen paper to get rid of some of the moisture, so they're not too wet. So they just go on, you can see that there. And you want to make a nice pattern because this bit is going to be on top once your cake is cooked. You turn it over. And very classic pineapple upside down cake, very 70s, is putting a glacé cherry in the centre of each pineapple ring. Hopefully you can see that. And just try and make sure your syrup is to every corner. Just leave that on the side for now. And then we're going to go back to our sugar and our butter. So if you don't have an electric whisk at home, hand mixer, you can do everything by hand. You just need to put a lot of elbow grease in and just keep beating your butter and sugar together until it's nice and light and fluffy. I'm going to use the mixer because it is quicker. Okay, so we cream the butter and sugar together until it's nice and light and fluffy, so that probably will take a couple of minutes. I think it's a bit slower if you've got normal butter. And we do that to incorporate lots of air into the mixture and to help the sugar to dissolve into the butter. And now the next step is to pop in your eggs. Now I did find some eggs, luckily. I could only find the medium ones, so this recipe really requires a large egg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of the pineapple juice from my remaining pineapple. Oh, didn't mean to put that in. I'm going to put some of the pineapple juice in a minute to replace some of the moisture that I've lost from just having a slightly smaller egg, if that makes sense. So our eggs go in one at a time, and we add a little bit, maybe a tablespoon of flour with each egg to stop it from curdling. Now you can, again, if you don't have your an electric whisk at home, you can just use a balloon whisk, handheld balloon whisk, and I'll just show you how you can do that, because it's the same thing, it's just a bit slower, but you just whisk them together. And you just do it till it's combined. So we need to do our 4 eggs. Sorry, there was a bit of something in the egg there I didn't want in there. And then don't forget your spoonful of flour. And whisk again. So this is just like making a sponge for a Victoria sponge. Last egg. And then I'm just going to add some of that pineapple juice. Now you could do this even if you have got large eggs and you've got the right size of eggs, but you would just put maybe 1 spoonful in. I'm going to put 2, 3. Juice will give a nice pineapple flavour to your cake. And then it's just a case of folding in your flour, so that can just go straight in, and fold it in with a metal spoon, just to, so you do not overdevelop the gluten. So if you continued with your whisk, you would overdevelop the gluten in the flour and your cake would be quite tough. Make sure all your flour is in, and then you're just going to really carefully pour your batter on top of your pineapples or whatever fruit you're using, but just be really careful not to move them around too much so you don't ruin your pattern underneath. Okay, so the cake's just come out of the oven. I think when I was filming it before, the last bit cut off, so didn't actually get to see the final bit, but I just basically smoothed over the cake mixture to make sure it's nice and flat, and then popped it in the oven for, this was probably just over 30 minutes, but it could take up to 40 minutes, and just keep checking it after a while. So it's gone a nice dark golden brown, and I've just checked it by pressing it and it springs back, and I've just popped a skewer in the centre to check that that comes out clean, and if it does, then it's ready. Now with this cake we're going to leave it in the tin to cool down for about 15 minutes, something like that, and that's because if we get it out now, the fruit might sort of make it fall apart. It's still going to be a bit soft, so that's why we keep it in the tin for a bit longer than usual. So I'll leave that for 15 minutes and then come back to it. Okay, so my cake has had about 15 minutes cooling time in the tin, so now it's time to take it out. So we're just going to use a spatula. You could use a knife if you're careful not to cut into the cake, just to go around the edges, loosening it. And then if you are not going to eat it straight away and you want it to cool, then you would just transfer it to a maybe just to a wire rack. But this cake is really nice served warm, so what I'm going to do is just transfer it to a board, a serving board, and leave it at that. So I'm just going to put the board on top and flip it over, and then hopefully, yes. So I hope you can see that. We've got all the pineapple and the cherries come out on top. Sometimes maybe 1 or 2 pieces of your fruit might get stuck to the tin. That happens sometimes. Just you can just take them out and pop them back on top. But there you go. You've got your pineapple upside down cake, which could be used with any type of fruit. So in the PowerPoint slides that I sent you, I showed you a few examples of different fruits that you could use. So have a go at playing with some different combinations, different fruits, whatever you can get your hands on at the moment. And as I said, this is quite nice served warm. You can have it cold as well, but it only tends to keep well for like 2, maybe 3 days. If you store it, make sure it's stored in an airtight container, it will stay a bit fresher. Any longer than that and the fruit tends to go a bit funny, so that's why it's slightly less than some other cakes. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. I know it's not quite the same as baking at home, but as I said before, just let me know if you've got any questions, and please do send me any videos or pictures that you take of your creations. I'd really be pleased to see them. And in the meantime, take care everyone, stay safe, and see you soon hopefully. Bye.